Welcome in Cover One Draft Weekly. John Helmkamp, Daniel Harms, actually in the flesh.
Finally, right?
Finally, which is legit, and it's been an absolute blast. We just got back from day one of the Senior Bowl practices, and there is a lot to get to. We're going to limit this one to be a fairly short episode, fairly short recap after each of the practices this week, where we just talk about a few of the key takeaways that we had. What were your thoughts on practice today?
This is really where we get to see a little bit of ramp up. They come in, their coaching style is a little bit different. They have to get used to the different quarterbacks, teammates, all that stuff. So we have to always take in a little bit of a grain of salt with how these players are performing in regards to what we're used to. So some of them might show out really early, others might not. It might take a little bit of time. So day one is always that acclimation period. But there's always guys that stand out and some that just don't come up and live up to some of those expectations. And that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Some of those players that, regardless of all the noise, some of them that had that work that they had to show from some of their offenses that maybe weren't as, let's just say, talent friendly or player friendly as we will come to know. But at the end of the day, there's always some guys that stand out. So let's get just this kicked off really quickly. Who is the number one player that I think everyone will be talking about after day one?
Yeah, it's Ricky Pearsall, wide receiver out of Florida. We knew it coming in. We both loved his tape. We've talked about him previously. His route running is exceptional, and he wasted no time showing it. I mean, the first practice he came out and his routes looked incredibly crisp. He was creating worlds of separation for any of the defenders that were lined up with him, making great catches. It was really the route running and the separation that stand out to me, and just how fluid and easy his movements are. It looked effortless for him because it kind of is, and we're used to seeing that out of him. But he had a great day one. I think that everyone's going to be talking about him leaving today.
Yeah, one of the things that I really liked is that he got to go up against Toledo cornerback Quinyon Mitchell a couple of different times. We saw him working against press, some inside releases, some hesitation, some stutter at the top. All of those head fakes, you guys remember from a few episodes ago, or actually last episode, where I told you where I comped him to a used car salesman. All of this stuff, he's always selling routes. It took him a couple of times in the one-on-ones to get used to kind of the speed and the feel of how this is going to run. But as soon as he got comfortable, he was ready just to do everything he's been doing. There was that nice little outward bender where he released to the inside, gives a little head fake to the inside, and then just breaks off the corner to the outside. He's got all of it from that short to intermediate, a little bit of deep if he's able to get the time to do it, because he's not a burner. He's not a burner. You have to understand that when you watch his tape. But again, this is why we talked about him. After day one, you're going to be hearing the name Ricky Pearsall a ton, not just on Twitter, national media. This guy's stock just rose a ton. For just from day one.
Yeah, I think so. Absolutely. And like you said, the used car salesman line was terrific in our last episode. I loved it. You talked about how he was going to be this year's Puka Nacua. It absolutely looks like it. I said he reminded me on film a little bit of Cooper Kupp in the way that he can use his head fakes to create separation without having to have like insane athleticism to create that separation.
It's true.
And he showed that today too. So I think that that's definitely a name that helped himself a ton. I think he's going to make himself some money this week, and looks to me like he's going to be going day two. That's kind of where I think that he ends up. So let's move on to our next guy that we wanted to talk about here. We wanted to go to the offensive line. Who was the offensive lineman that stood out?
Tyler Guyton was one of the guys that I got down over to those one-on-one, the matchups with the defensive lineman and the offensive lineman, and he was everywhere. There was a big matchup. He got against Tyler Braswell multiple different times, and he was able to really take him out. That was someone I was really excited to see, and I was a little disappointed by that, but obviously we'll get to some of the disappointment, or maybe one specific one a little bit later. But Guyton everywhere, just his movement, his kick step, that drop. He wasn't just attacking. He was doing a little bit of 45, a little bit of vertical, and then the recovery athleticism that he showed was fantastic. Hand location, all of those things with these pass rushers, he was everywhere and just consistently going one-on-one with these guys. He did get beat, which we'll talk about in a little bit, but that's a guy who's going to be a lot of fun as well. But what we're seeing from some of these Oklahoma offensive linemen, that right now they might be one of the best schools at continuously churning out offensive linemen. You look at, last year, Anton Harrison in the first round, Wanya Morris in the third round, Creed Humphrey a few years ago to Kansas City. Like, they are just continuously putting out these offensive linemen, and Guyton had himself a fantastic day one.
Yeah, he did. You know, he comes in, he checks in at 6'7", 328 pounds,
Ridiculous.
like just insane size, and he looked every bit of it. He was dominant all over the field today, and it looks like there were NFL eyes all over him in any of the reps that he was doing. Just dominant, able to stonewall defenders pretty easily in some of the drills that he was doing. He didn't allow a single sack at all this last year, and I think that he's just making himself into a starting offensive lineman at the next level instantly. Instant impact offensive lineman.
Absolutely, and that's what you're looking for. That's what these Senior Bowls are for. You're going to get some of these players that aren't talked enough about, and they get an opportunity to come against some of the better seniors, more experienced players in these draft classes. And that's one of the first kind of rulers, the measuring sticks that we get. Experience, and that's one of the big reasons that the Senior Bowl exists, to get those matchups with these guys that have been doing it a little bit longer. And now we're going to get some exposure to juniors who are really talented, maybe not the most experienced, to come against some of these guys. But going back to Guyton, just everything that he was able to do today, showing off the athleticism for a guy who is 6'7", 328 pounds. He did not size. He didn't look like he labored at all. Everything was smooth. It was kind of effortless to watch him. And the power that he possesses in those hands is phenomenal. So he's definitely going to be on a lot of people's radar as we go forward.
There was one guy that got the better of him, though.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Who was that guy?
Nelson Cesar.
Oh, Cesar,
who
man.
checked in at, let's see, he's a smaller defensive end here. I mean, everyone's small when you compare them to the guy we just talked about.
Yeah.
But 6'2", 260. So he's not going to go, King Kong versus Godzilla against Guyton.
Yeah.
But he beat him, and he beat him with a wicked spin move. And he was the only one that I think got the best of Guyton today. And that spin move was lethally quick. So I think you're looking at an edge rusher who clearly has athleticism and has some moves in his bag that he can pull out even against these very sure-handed offensive linemen. That was a great rep for him, and it wasn't the only time that he flashed today. No,
I love trench play, guys. That's one of my favorite things to watch. And honestly, he looks taller and longer than 6'2". Like, he looks like this lanky, athletic pass rusher, and he wasn't just a guy who was pass rushing. They did a lot of the work with run game too, and he was able to hold his own against some of these tackles. And when you can flash that power, that physical nature, but then have all these different tools in the toolbox, the reason he was able to get the better of Guyton is because he is explosive. That first step, he's really able to challenge the arc of a tackle and use his extension to create inside counters. That's what I like to see about him, because it wasn't just the same move over and over. It was getting into tackles, extending, and then able to choose, I'm going to go outside or I'm going to go inside. And it really makes those tackles have to guess what you're going to do. And that's what you want in those one-on-one situations, to leave them guessing. So what he was able to do today was really a fantastic introduction for a lot of us to Cesar, and really everybody, because I didn't know his name coming in. So when you were able to do that, you really give yourself a huge platform going forward, especially for the next couple of days.
Yeah, he looks like one of these edge rushers. I mean, being a pass rusher is an art, and it's not just, I'm going to do this every single time where I have a couple things in my bag. It's knowing how to string them together, how to set up offensive linemen. It's a continuous chess match back and forth between offensive linemen and pass rushers throughout the course of games, and in this case, throughout the course of this week, right? Because now all of a sudden, we know that he has that speed, that ability to get to the outside. Offensive linemen have to respect it, but he also now showed that he has this ability to flip around on a good spin move. And it was a sharp, his hands hit quick. And he basically, it was like a stun that he spun off of to get to the inside. So it's going to be very interesting to see how the offensive linemen adjust to him as the week goes on. But another guy that I think made an impact on day one for sure.
And one thing that I liked about what they did is that he wasn't just lining up as an edge rusher. He was lining up as like a 3-tech or a 5-tech inside something against some of these guards. That positional versatility is going to give you a ton of extra leeway with teams that you showcase the ability to pass rush from the interior and the outside and beat maybe the best offensive lineman that we saw today. I mean, there was a lot of good players in the first team, but I expected Jordan Morgan and, Talise Fuaga to have good days. I didn't necessarily expect Guyton to come in and kind of shut down some of these players like he did. So when you're able to beat him that way, ears perk up, eyes kind of widen a little bit, and he absolutely did that today.
Earlier, we talked about how Ricky Pearsall looks effortless and silky in his movements. There's a wide receiver who was getting a lot of buzz heading into this week, getting mocked in the first round all over the place. that did not look quite as effortless in his movements. It was University of North Carolina wide receiver Tez Walker.
Yeah, Tez is a different kind of guy. When you're looking at North Carolina, the last couple of years, I mean, Josh Downs last year, obviously everyone's like, this guy is much different than what we're seeing right now with Tez. Tez is much more that downfield speed and go get the football kind of guy.
Right.
In these one-on-ones, when they were able to throw off his timing and they were able to get in his face, these corners able to kind of get in his chest a little bit, he was not able to create a ton of separation. And this is an area where you need to be able to showcase you can get open. Right. You have to. These are some really good corners. You know, Caleb King, Johnny Dixon, Quinton Mitchell, all these guys.
Dixon had a nice day.
Dixon did have a really nice day, and that's something too. He was able to shut down a lot of the guys that he played. And in Tez, when you're coming in with this steam, seemingly, you're like getting mocked in the first round, people kind of expect you to show that you're a first-round player, at least on an early round 2 player. And today he looked a little out of place. I heard that he was running routes wrong, having to get coached up on how to run specific routes. Even in the warm-ups, he was lining up wrong at times. Right. So there's a lot of coaching aspects. And again, it is the first day. So we want to just point out that he was having some trouble. Maybe tomorrow and Thursday we'll see some of the coaching come to fruition, and he's not lining up wrong. He's not running the wrong routes. But it was not a day to remember for Tez Walker.
No, it definitely wasn't. And if it is memorable, it's memorable for the wrong reasons. And that is, like you were saying, the route running, the separation wasn't really there. Yeah. And he had a couple drops. We saw him drop down and do some push-ups to punish himself on a drop that he had because he thought it was one that he absolutely should have held on to. And one of those drops was roughly 15 to 20 yards down the field. Yeah. And that's where he's supposed to make his money. So to drop one of those opportunities, you're not selling your strengths on top of not showing improvement in your weaknesses.
Very true.
And that's something that I think made this just not a great day for Tez Walker. Again, it's only day one. Yeah. He has all week. And maybe it is, you know, these players go through so much between all the interviews that they have to do, the schedule that they're in all week long. It's exhausting. It's a new platform, new environment. Sure. He had a bad day. Doesn't mean he's going to have a bad week or that he's a bad player.
For sure.
And hopefully we see him clean up some of that stuff going forward.
And that's the thing too. Like, these coaches, you're going to come in with a different kind of mindset every day. If you come in with the same one every single day, they're probably not going to be as hard on you to try to improve as much because they might not think you're worth it. So come in on Wednesday with a different mindset, clean vision of what you're supposed to do better, especially after a day like that. You want to really showcase that you can run some routes, create some separation, and maybe even dunk on some of these cornerbacks, which is your bread and butter. But I will say that he wasn't really given many opportunities to dunk on these players with the quarterback play that we saw today.
Very few wide receivers were. The quarterback play looked a little hesitant. They weren't willing to take their chances down the field. It's day one. Hopefully they'll open that up as the week goes on, both for their sake and for the wide receivers, right? You want to see them get these opportunities. Yeah. We've talked about it off air. I'm expecting Tez Walker to make at least one ridiculous contested catch this week because it's what he does. So hopefully he gets that opportunity and gets back in the win column.
Yeah, that's what this is all about. Again, going back to tomorrow and Thursday, learning everything that you are with these NFL coaches, being coachable and trying to get better. So these are the guys that we really wanted to talk about today. Just Ricky Pearsall, Tyler Guyton, Cesar, and Tez Walker. These really guys stood out, unfortunately for Walker in the wrong way. But this is how we're going to recap each day of the Senior Bowl. We're going to pick some players that maybe are more under the radar that are having really nice days and showing out to everybody else. So I don't know about you, but I'm really looking forward to seeing what we got day 2 and day 3.
It's great. I mean, it's just been a blast of an experience already. It's fun seeing these players in person and just seeing how they adapt to this situation. Yeah. So we're just going to keep these short and sweet this week. Little recaps for you. We will see you guys tomorrow after day 2.
Yeah.
All right.